You're home from school with a fever. The blinds are half down, and the house is quiet in a way it never is on a normal Tuesday. Your mom comes up with a tray, and on it, there's a glass of ginger ale. Flat, no ice, gone a little warm on the stairs. You take a sip, and your stomach settles, and the taste welds itself to a feeling of being small and cared for. That drink was Canada Dry. A little shield near the top, a map of the country tucked inside it. You always figured it was ours. So, how does a drink named after Canada, invented by a Canadian, with a map of Canada printed on the bottle, end up owned by a company in Texas that most Canadians have never heard of? To answer that, you have to go back to where it started. Toronto, 1890. A young pharmacist named John J. McLaughlin steps off the train from Brooklyn and rents a little shop near City Hall. Everyone calls him Jack. He grew up on a farm near Enniskillen, east of the city, the eldest son of a carriage maker. That family carriage works in Oshawa would one day grow into General Motors of Canada. Jack could have gone into the family trade. He wanted pop instead. In New York, he'd spent his nights working the marble soda fountain of a Brooklyn drugstore, mixing fizzy water and fruit syrup for lineups of thirsty customers. The drinks had names like Humdinger, an American gentleman, and the Japanese thirst killer, and people lined up for them at 5 cents a glass. He came back to Toronto with one conviction: the real money was in pop. Most Canadians have no idea their favorite ginger ale was born on a chemist's bench, somewhere between the sarsaparilla and the cream soda. Because that's what Jack made at first. All of it: soda water, mineral water, sarsaparilla, lemon sour, cola, ginger beer, sold out of the siphon bottles he's credited with bringing to Toronto in the first place. By 1893, he'd outgrown 2 locations and set up a bigger factory on Sherbourne Street. His side business building the marble counters and carbonating gear for soda fountains did well too, fitting out some of the grandest rooms in the country. The Hudson's Bay store in Edmonton, the Robert Simpson Company in Toronto. He was also a bit of a showman. When people worried the city tap water wasn't safe, he leaned right into it, running ads that told Torontonians not to suicide by drinking municipal water, and to buy his clean bottled stuff instead. And he was fussy about flavor. Ginger ale back then was dark and syrupy and oversweet, the kind of thing you drank warm and pretended to enjoy. A Toronto paper in 1895 praised Jack's early version for tasting like real ginger, instead of, and this is the actual quote, throat liniment. He was chasing something you'd reach for because you wanted it, fever or no fever. So he kept tinkering. For 14 years. In 1904, he finally landed it. A pale, light, dry ginger ale, nothing like the muddy stuff on every other shelf, with less sugar and a cleaner bite. He called it dry, the way you'd call a wine dry, because it wasn't sweet, and he stamped the boldest word he could think of across the label: Canada. His wife handed him the line that would outlive them both: the champagne of ginger ales. In 1905, he incorporated the company as J.J. McLaughlin Limited and filed for the trademark. The first labels showed a beaver sitting on top of a map of Canada. Then, in 1907, the drink was chosen to be served in the household of Canada's Governor General, an actual royal appointment, and they swapped the beaver for a crown and tucked the map inside a shield. That crown and shield is the logo you grew up with. By the time your parents were kids, it was everywhere. It lived in the door of the fridge and on the shelf at the corner store, right there next to the pop shop bottles. Grandmothers kept it on hand for upset stomachs. It turned up at barbecues and rink canteens and Christmas tables across the country. Half of Canada has the same memory of being handed a glass of it, flat and warm on a sick day in a quiet house. You thought that memory was yours alone. It belonged to everyone. Picture that for a second. A Canadian drink with a Canadian name. A map of the country on the glass. A blessing from the crown itself. Set out to invent the most Canadian product imaginable, and you would land almost exactly here. The more Canadian Jack made it, the more the Americans wanted a piece. Word got south. When bottles started reaching New York, the drink took off, and the offers came with it. The pitch was always some version of the same ask. Sell the formula. Move production across the border, license it out, franchise it, hand the whole thing over. Jack said no, every time. He'd built something that belonged here, and he meant for it to stay here, and he held that line for the rest of his life. That life was shorter than it should have been. Jack had tuberculosis. The family took a summer place up on Lake Rousseau in Muskoka, hoping the clean northern air would ease his lungs. When it got worse, he chased warmer weather in the American Southwest and Southern Europe. None of it was enough. On the 28th of January, 1914, at home in Rosedale, his heart gave out. He was 48 years old. They buried him at St. James Cemetery, a streetcar ride from the shop where the whole thing had started. His 3 children were still young, so his brothers stepped in to run the company as executors. For a moment, it looked like the family would simply carry on. It was the last stretch of time the drink would fully belong to them, because something enormous was building just across the border, and the timing could not have been stranger. In 1920, the United States went dry. Prohibition made alcohol illegal, and almost overnight, millions of people started brewing rough liquor in bathtubs and backrooms. The homemade stuff tasted like paint stripper. You needed something sharp and clean to cut it. Something strong enough to hide what was really in the glass. And Canada Dry was perfect for the job. A drink invented by a straight-laced Toronto pharmacist to be wholesome and refined became the favorite chaser of every speakeasy and bootlegger in America. Jack would have been horrified. The accountants were thrilled. Demand went vertical. In 1922, the family opened a bottling plant in New York City, partly to get around a tariff on imported ginger ale. And then, in 1923, they did the one thing Jack had spent 20 years refusing to do. They sold. A group of American investors called P.D. Saylor and Associates bought Canada Dry from the McLaughlin family and turned it into a public company, Canada Dry Ginger Ale, Incorporated. 9 years after Jack died protecting it, the drink named after Canada stopped being Canadian-owned. And the man who'd said no his entire life wasn't around to say it one more time. This is the part where it stops being our story and starts being a business story. As a business, it soared. By 1930, sales had jumped from 2 million bottles a year to 10 million, which made Canada Dry the best-selling ginger ale on the planet. Through the 30s, it spread overseas, adding club soda and tonic water and mixer after mixer, eventually reaching shelves from Europe to Japan. The side project of one Toronto pharmacist now sat in cities his family would never visit, a long way from Sherbourne Street. That little pop company had become a giant, and the giant answered to someone else. From this point on, the story stops being about a drink at all. It becomes a story about how big companies pass a thing between them until nobody remembers where it came from. Follow the bottle. In 1964, an American industrialist folded Canada Dry into a conglomerate called Norton Simon Incorporated. Dr. Pepper bought it in 1982. 2 years later, Dr. Pepper itself got swallowed in a buyout, and Canada Dry was sold off again. this time to R.J. Reynolds' Del Monte division, for one specific reason: to help pay down the debt from someone else's takeover. A drink named after Canada, invented by a Canadian, used as spare change to settle an American buyout. Then, in 1986, the whole soft drink business went to a British company, Cadbury Schweppes, for $230 million. Cadbury spun its drinks off in 2008 into a new American company, Dr. Pepper Snapple. That company merged in 2018 into Keurig Dr. Pepper, an $18.5 billion giant run out of Texas and backed by an investment firm all the way over in Luxembourg. Count the owners, from a Toronto family to New York investors to a California conglomerate to Dr. Pepper to a cigarette company's food division to the British, and finally to a Texas corporation steered by money in Europe. The drink your mom gave you when you were sick has changed hands more times than most people change houses. Not one of those deals was signed in Canada, and no one ever thought to ask a single Canadian what they made of it. There's one last detail, and it would have broken Jack's heart. In 2019, Canada Dry got hit with lawsuits in the United States, arguing that its ginger ale barely contained any real ginger, despite years of ads promising it was made from real ginger. Rather than fight it, the company quietly dropped the claim. The man who spent 14 years chasing a formula that tasted like true ginger, who turned down fortune after fortune to keep it honest, ended up with his name on a product sued for not having enough of the one ingredient he cared about most. Now, none of this means Canada Dry disappeared. Walk into any store in the country tomorrow, and it's right there in the cooler. The same green, the same shield on the label. It's still the ginger ale people reach for when their stomach's off. Still the mixer at the back of the bar. Still poured at rinks and reunions and sick days from Victoria to St. John's. In that sense, it never left. The catch is that it isn't ours. It hasn't been owned here in over 100 years. The profits go to Texas. Decisions about a Toronto invention happen in boardrooms that have never heard of Sherbourne Street, and most of the people who drink it have no idea it was ever anything but another product on a shelf, let alone that it began with a sick, stubborn pharmacist who put his whole country's name on a bottle and spent his life refusing to let it go. So the next time you're in a store, pick up a bottle and find the shield near the top. Look at the little map tucked inside it. That map isn't a promise anymore. It's a souvenir. When's the last time you really looked at it and remembered that it was supposed to mean home? If this brought back the taste of a sick day, or a grandmother's fridge, or a green bottle sweating on a summer porch, share it with someone who grew up on it too. And subscribe so these Canadian stories don't get quietly sold off and forgotten the way the companies were. Jack put a map of Canada on a bottle so the whole world would know exactly where it came from. The least we can do is remember.